doing home births here in Alabama is uncomfortable for me because it is so taboo. And there are people in this community who want me to stop and want to see me fail. I have been reported to the board of midwifery and the board of nursing because these people want me to stop doing home births. Had to go through that.
You're doing some really great stuff when people are actively trying to get your butt out of this community.
Absolutely right. Yeah. I just want everybody to love each other and for people to get what they want. I do want to say this too. It is the doctor that helped me get hospital privileges is the literal angel of this whole situation. We are like two peas in a pod. We think very similarly, and she gives her heart and soul to my patients, and she is wonderful. And I feel like I'm back, and I feel so empowered because I have her on my side.
Welcome to the Keeping Your Power Real Talk on Resilience podcast. I'm your host, Tracidoula. I'm a family and birth advocate, a mentor, and your personal encourager. I wanted to create the space for individuals, families, and professionals who are done with just surviving and want to rise. Because when everything feels like it's falling apart, the one thing the world can't take from you is your power. And that's where resilience begins. It's not just riding the waves or surviving the storms. It's about how to overcome the challenges. So whether you're in the thick of it or reflecting on where you've been, pull up a chair and let's navigate the hard conversations and the beautiful stories that together we can be honest and use empathy and have a desire to grow, all while, of course, keeping your power in the process. What happens when a powerhouse midwife leaves a place where her work was celebrated and steps into a community that barely sees her at all? We'll meet Dr. Kimberly Taylor, Doctor of Nursing Practice, Certified Nurse Midwife, Certified Practicing Midwife, and a licensed midwife. She's faced isolation, resistance, and even lies aimed at silencing her. But instead of backing down, she's built something bold. With resistance, integrity, and relentless advocacy, Kim is reshaping maternity care where it's most needed. It isn't just midwifery. It's a movement. Tune in to hear how she's making some serious waves and keeping her power in the process. Kim, the Kimster, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to have you.
I'm so excited to be here.
Kim is a midwife. She is a huge deal. I have known her, I don't know, how long have I known you? Three years or so? Kim is a certified nurse midwife. She is a certified practicing midwife, a licensed midwife. So I call her Dr. Kim, Doc sometimes. And I'm just excited to talk to you because I want everyone to get to know you. I want everyone to dive into your brain, the brain that I have seen, the activity that people don't get to dive into their providers about. If you are a birth worker, you are going to love this episode. If you are someone that is pregnant or wants to be or childbearing, you are going to hear some stuff, some tips and tricks too. I'm going to pick her brain. So, stay tuned for some educational things too. We're just going to talk about a lot. And I have a lot of experience around different providers. I have helped at home births throughout the years with home birth midwives, and I have been in the hospital with certified nurse midwives, OBs, and then some DOs that weren't really OBs, but they caught babies. And you have been just tickling my brain ever since I have known you because you have a very different approach. And I just can't wait to share this with the world. So tell us a little bit about you and personal, whatever you want to put out there. And then we'll start with where you started with birth work.
Awesome. So I am Dr. Kimberly Taylor. I'm certified nurse midwife, certified professional midwife, licensed midwife, all the things. And we'll get into why there are some of those letters behind my name. But I am a mom. I have 4 children, all under the age of 10, and from Billingsley, Alabama, in the middle of nowhere. I grew up on a farm. Like my dad was retired from the Army and retired when I was 14. And so I was homeschooled, and he wanted to be a farmer when he retired. So that's what we did. Organic farming out in Billingsley, Alabama. So spent a lot of time outside, a lot of time organic homesteading, pigs, chickens, all the things you pick, strawberries, I also, so when I went to college, I became a nurse, of course, got my bachelor's degree in nursing. And then I joined the Army and left Alabama to go serve our nation's sons and daughters. And so I was a nurse on a cardiac step-down unit for about 18 months after first getting into the military. And this is going to segue into where midwifery came in. However, I switched into labor and delivery in the Army. So in the Army, you have lots of different specialties, and labor and delivery is one of them. So I switched over after my cardiac step-down unit time, and then decided to go to midwifery school. And so went right into midwifery school after a few years of labor and delivery, and then had a bunch of babies in the meantime and all of that. And then when I got out of the military, I settled in Washington. So at the time, I had graduated in 2018. I actually had written a paper during midwifery school about a bill that was happening in Alabama, the home birth bill, and how I personally always wanted to do home births and birth center births and hospital births. So I chose to be a nurse midwife because of that scope, because we can do all of the things, right? And so when I got out of the Army, I was like, oh, I've written this paper, and it was like fighting for midwives, right? And I knew that Alabama only had a few nurse midwives. So when I got out, I said, I can't go back there. I can't do anything that I want to do.
We were absolutely in the thick of trying to get certified professional midwives that were recognized to do home births to be recognized, because I mean, it was I think it was 14 years that we were trying to do that. It was wild.
Yeah. And I knew that as a nurse midwife, I wasn't going to be able to truly do home births there. It literally said it was illegal in the law, right? So I settled back in Washington, near where I had been stationed at Fort Lewis, Washington, and came into this big practice in Olympia, Washington. And we had 6 doctors, 6 midwives, maybe even more midwives than that, but we had, a lot of midwives there. And I mean, in Washington, there's 500 midwives, right? So it's saturated. And so settled there. And then in 2022, decided that, COVID had happened and everything had, shut down, and it was just a lot. And I was spending all of this money to have people watch my kids. Mm-hmm. And my husband was working fully remote and has been since 2019, honestly. So, it just kind of solidified it after COVID. And so we thought, what are we doing? I feel like we're wasting our time here in Washington. Our grandparents live here. Our families are here. Why don't we come back to Alabama and just be with our families and slow down a little bit and, all the things.
Before we move here, tell me about practicing as a certified nurse midwife in Washington.
Okay. So here's the first thing is that nurse midwives in Washington they're everywhere. Okay. So it's almost like we are seen as a solution than a problem, almost, and we'll get into this a little bit about the differences, right? But Alabama does not utilize nurse midwives like they could. Okay. And Washington, I really feel like they do. I mean, you graduate nurse midwifery school there, and you can't find a job because they are everywhere. There are so many midwives. And so, another, a difference too is that it's not, there's not this collaborative agreement thing that you have to have. So there's not, it's independent practice. Obviously you have to have a collaborating physician. If you're going to be in the hospital, you got to have somebody you're working with. We can't do C-sections, we shouldn't be doing, there's high risk things that we shouldn't be doing. So obviously we would have a relationship on paper with a physician, OBGYN or family practice OB or something, or work in a practice that has that situation. But to become licensed, I didn't need any of that. And so you can do home births, you can work at a birth center. You don't need any permission to do that.
So in Washington and maybe other states too, if you're a CNM, you can deliver anywhere. You're recognized to deliver anywhere.
Correct. And also to not only deliver, but to take care of women and people who need my care, right? So I had autonomy. I didn't need a physician's permission to care for my clients. I did collaborate with OBs when it was clinically appropriate, but not because I was forced to. And also in my practice, I mean, I did VBACs or TOLAC, right? Like it was a normal, very normal for our practice to, I mean, we had a ton of midwives, so we were VBAC excited even, you know, it was no such, I mean, yeah, we theoretically used the calculator and, you know, like the things that obviously we did the counseling that ACOG represents, right? Like then recommends that we do, like, here's your risk, here's your benefits, here's the risk of uterine rupture, here's what happens if that happens, like this is the emergency plan, like, are you comfortable with these things? And if they say yes, then it is what it is, you know what I mean? So, and our physicians were right there to back us up. I mean, some of them were like pretty typical, you know, like, oh, I don't want them to do that. I'd rather them have a C-section, like whatever. If there's a little bit complications or something, then obviously we had them to say their piece, and that's fine, totally fine. Okay. But in the end, like it was whatever the patient wanted. So that was kind of how it was practicing, right? So I got to see my patients. I got to do what I wanted within my scope of practice, and held accountable for my own actions, right? Nobody else was accountable for my actions. And yes, we could do home births, we could do birth center births, we could do hospital births independently without permission.
It sounds like you had a pretty good thing going.
Oh, the best thing.
Because, you know, if you were working independently, did that mean that you never got called out?
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did also work with a team of people, right? So I was in a busy practice that was well established. One of the doctors who had worked there, I believe, was one of the original partners in the practice. And so, I mean, we did like 2,000 deliveries a year. Like it was a large practice, right? But another thing is like, we were all friends. Mm-hmm. We were all
supporting each other.
The doctors didn't necessarily think they were better than me. And obviously I was like, I need a grown up. Can somebody help me? Right? Like there was never a time when I felt like intimidated by my physicians ever. And I mean, even when there was some things, like I remember one time when I very first got there, I had been practicing on my own for a while, and I mean, just a little while. And there was this girl that was maybe 36 or 37 weeks. And I didn't realize, I guess, or know that I was allowed to just bring the ultrasound in and check for this girl to be head down or whatever. So, the next week she came to see one of the doctors, and her baby was breech. And so the doctor came to me and she was like, hey, just so you know, we like usually bring out the ultrasound at 36 weeks and like make sure this baby's head down so that at 37 weeks, when, you know, they go to the next person, we're not like scrambling. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that I was allowed to do that, you know? So there was just like those, you know, but it wasn't like, oh my God, you didn't do this. Mm-hmm, it was just like, hey, this is what we normally do. The ultrasound's right here. It's really easy. This is how you use it, you know, like whatever. Well, obviously I knew how to use it, but like the buttons stuff, you know.
In your relationships with your like labor and delivery nurses, were they smooth?
Let's be real. Nurses are nurses. Okay. We are a different group of people. We are a different type of personality. So I had a wonderful relationship with most of my nurses. Some of my nurses were just mean as fire, like they can be, right? Like it is what it is. It took me a while. Also, another thing was I was really young. I mean, I was 28 when I became a midwife. So I was really young, and I'm very bubbly, and some people don't love that. And I very much don't care. I did a lot of my training as a nurse midwifery student in a birth center who did hospital births, home births, and birth center births. And so I was used to people doing water births, and I was used to like all of the hippie crunchy things, right? So a lot of times when you come into, even if a hospital has midwives that the state is very comfortable having, that doesn't mean that the culture is midwife friendly or patient friendly, right? Like that is where you go, you're going to have that systematic struggle, right? Always thinking about liability, always thinking about the rules, or I don't know, whatever. That's not our policy. Where I have never been one of those people that's like, I mean, sure, it's our policy, but like, what are you going to do? Fire them? They're paying you to be there. If as long as it's safe and normal, like, I mean, I don't know, like, even if it's not normal, like, I don't care if you could hang from the ceiling and have your baby as long as your baby sounds good. You know what I mean?
I say that all the time.
I do not care. And so I think that was a little bit of a struggle with some of the nurses that had to get used to me, because we also they have been used to midwives who were just in the hospital and just, like the typical, like, oh, this is what we do. And, we get into the groove, we get into the system, and you don't really bucket, but I don't care about the system. And so if we didn't do water births at this hospital, but we did tub labors. And so if somebody was in the tub and refused to get out, we had a water birth, and I would get written up every time. And that was okay. Like, whatever. I mean, I get called to the safety. I'll do something that made somebody mad. And, safety meetings would come every, month or so. And I'd be like, all right, what I get wrote up for this time? It was just a thing. It is what it is, but I've never been one to obey the system if it was safe. So that was that.
So what possessed you and your family to want to come back to Alabama that is not that?
Right. So nothing about being a midwife made me want to come to Alabama. I knew that it was going to be real hard. And honestly, I came a bit kicking and screaming. I had very specific criteria for why we would be allowed to move here. So, like I said, my husband and I sat down and we were like, we really miss people. Like we are alone. We are tired. Like we didn't want free babysitting. We wanted community. And we had some of that there, but it just wasn't the same as being with your family. And so I said, oh, okay, if we move there, we have to find a house in your parents' neighborhood. And there was a house 2 blocks away. And, so just things just kind of like fell into where they needed to be. And so what possessed us was just being lonely and wanting family. And I left a wonderful setup. Good money, good schedule, good relationships, like just, I had a wait list of patients that, wanted to see me, and I had a community. So in the community, but I didn't have like family community. Right. So that was what was important.
So when you got back to Alabama and then you decided, oh, I'm going to continue my midwifery journey.
Yeah.
Then it slapped you in the face.
It sure did. So here's the thing is Alabama is hard. Okay. You look around and there was only 2 midwives when I got here at a practice.
Certified nurse midwives that practiced inside the hospital.
Certified nurse midwives that practiced in the hospital. And which I came home wanting to be a nurse midwife. Expecting to be a nurse midwife, right?
And other parts of Alabama too, there was a transition of a bigger hospital that was doing the majority of births that did have a midwifery program that actually shut down. I think somewhere around
a year after I got here.
Yeah, maybe a year after. So it was becoming very clear that there wasn't a whole lot of certified nurse midwives in Alabama at all, except for that one practice at that one hospital.
Yes, exactly. And then, in Montgomery, like there was no home birth midwives in my area. Like Christine is in Opelika, which is about an hour away. And then you've got your Birmingham midwives, and you got your Dothan. I mean, so literally like it was just this desert with 2 certified nurse midwives at the hospital who, for lack of better words, did not want to work with me. Okay. But that's where we're going to leave that. It was a lot and it was hurtful. I can say that, I am and was an excellent candidate to work at that practice. And I'm glad it wasn't a good fit because of what I'm doing now. But also it was very hurtful. And the way that I was treated was really unkind. So I wasn't able to work there, and it was fine. It was fine.
I'm thankful too, because God knew exactly what you needed to do for this community.
Yes.
If you had been working there, you definitely wouldn't be doing what you're doing today. But let's talk about like your entire journey. You got here, you wanted to be a certified nurse midwife. It didn't work out with that practice. Thank you, Jesus. But you couldn't do home births as a certified nurse midwife. So then what?
I couldn't even theoretically, legally call myself a midwife because Alabama thinks that they own the word midwife. Because in the law, it says if you're not licensed, you can't call your midwife whatever. I literally have a degree in nurse midwifery. So I will die on that hill that I will call myself a midwife, whether I'm licensed or not. Okay, so there's that. However, yes. So I was like, you know what? This is dumb. There's literally no reason for this. I am going to do home births. And I had a friend a couple of friends. One of the midwives in Birmingham was a midwifery student in Olympia when I was a nurse midwife at the hospital. She was a home birth midwife student under one of my good friends who was a home birth midwife, a certified professional midwife. And we worked really closely together. And I would take some of her patients, when they needed to be transferred into the hospital. And, it was a very like smooth system if they wanted to be at my hospital. And so she worked under her, got all of her births together, and then was from Alabama. So I remembered that she was here. And so I reached out to her like, hey, I'm moving back, like, what's the deal? And she's like, girl, just do midwifery here. Like, just be a home birth midwife. Like, don't worry about those hospital people. You don't want to be with that system right now. Anyway, like, let's just, go like, and I'm like, all right, fine. How do I do that? So I had to go back into this like training situation and like go through the NARM, the home birth midwife / CPM certification,
because it wasn't enough.
Right.
It wasn't enough that you already did school and you had your certified nurse midwifery. That did not matter. The state of Alabama, but you had to do
or for NARM at all anyway.
For NARM at all, right? You had to do school, and then you had to do births. And how many births did you have to attend before you took your exam?
Okay, so NARM recognizes a certified nurse midwife as a professional, and so they don't make you do like the largest amount like they would if you were just starting out, right? Like if you didn't have experience. And so I do appreciate that. So technically I had to do 10 out of hospital births, and 5 of them had to be continuity. So meaning I had to do at least 5 of their visits spanning over 2 trimesters, do the birth, the baby, and 1 or 2 postpartum visits, right? So like 10 months of my life, right? So like 5 of them you can just knock out, and then 5 of them you have to do, right? So I had to start taking patients while not licensed under the supervision of a licensed midwife, even though I am a nurse midwife and actually taught this person when she was a student midwife in some way, shape, or form. Anyway, it was weird. And so, but we did it. But the problem was too that like a couple of them didn't count because we had to go to the hospital because sometimes people have to go to the hospital for birth instead of having a home birth, know? So, for safety reasons, we go over there. And so those didn't count.
And that's what's so funny, because that's where we met is yes. You were on a team with one of my clients, and I was the doula. And I remember vividly the day that we met, and you came in with the team. It was just a prenatal appointment, and I was just there because that's what I do for, my clients when the team's coming. Do you want me around too? And I was there, and you come in, and I had known about you before. I just had not met you yet, like in person yet, because we had some like mutual people that we knew together. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait for this person to be here. I can't wait to meet her. You come in, and you're high energy, bubbly Kim. And I'm like, oh, we're going to get along, man. We're going to get along. But what happened, the very first thing that happened was they were trying to draw blood. And I don't know if somebody couldn't do it. I don't remember, but you're like, I'll do it. I got it. Want me to do it? Like you just kind of asserted yourself into this. And I was like, there we go. That's what we need. We need the confidence. We need the assertiveness. And it just kind of rock and rolled. That's how I saw you come into the community. It was just like, I know what I'm doing. I know how to do this. And what I saw, and we're going to get to that specific birth because I'm very thankful that you were at that birth. The thing that I saw was you were teaching the home birth midwives things.
Were supervising me.
That they didn't know, and not any fault of theirs.
No,
not for any fault of theirs. It was just like, Kim's like, this might be a little bit easier in this way. And then I saw the community kind of come together around you, the midwives that you did that were supervising over you for these births. And I was like, this is what this community has needed, is somebody that has been out of the state, that has come in, that is willing to, give all her stuff away, because nobody is in competition here. We are just here trying to take care of our community is what I saw.
That is absolutely right. Yeah. I just want everybody to love each other and for people to get what they want.
Yeah. So what did you see as a part of those births that you attended before you got your certified professional midwives license?
The community as a whole in Alabama is real weird towards home birth. That's one thing that I saw, was that it is it's just like almost like people think you're being irresponsible for having a baby at home. And I mean, in a way, like, I guess, like, I get it why they would think that, but also, like, not your business, first of all. Second of all, like, let's talk about what makes home birth safe and what makes home birth not safe, right? And like having a low risk human being who, yes, you can have things that happen in a low risk human being, right? Like, but that's why we bring the things. That's why you hire people that know what they're doing and like can do the things, right?
But why do we think birth culture is like that here, though? Like, let's be very raw and real with this for a second. The hospitals have a monopoly on birth in Alabama. They want to keep people in the system. They want to have that oppressive language of, oh, you would never want to do that. Why would anybody want to do that? And be very manipulative about it. And I even have people call me today that say, oh, well, I asked my doctor or, whoever I ran into at the hospital about home birth, and they say it's illegal. And I'm like, well, they're lying to you because it's not. Right?
Of course.
So of course.
I mean, maybe for them to attend a home birth. Right. And it's not, okay, I'm going to clear this up right now, actually. It is not illegal for anyone in our state with the license to do nurse midwifery, physicians, licensed midwives, to have a home birth in the state of Alabama. Okay. Here's the problem. First of all, is the physician's malpractice insurance restricts that. They cannot necessarily attend a home birth because most likely their malpractice insurance says that they cannot do it or they will be dropped. Right. So that's their restriction. I don't know maybe one doctor that I do know, one of my collaborators would do home births probably, but I don't know anybody else who would do it. Like, they want other people, it's fine, you can do it, whatever, but like, or some people it's not fine, right? But anyway, most of the time the physicians, they cannot do it because of their malpractice insurance. That is the tie. The nurse midwives, we can do home births. period. There is nothing that says we cannot do home births. Now, Medicaid says they won't pay for home births. It says that you have to document what hospital you're going to be delivering at and whatever, right? So if you accidentally have a baby at home, that's, and then I attend it because my malpractice does not restrict that on me. But it's, that is
But a difference is the majority of nurse midwives that have ever worked in Alabama have been under an OB practice.
Under a practice, yes, who are not allowed, right? And so in the state of Alabama, I can do home births as long as my collaborative agreement specifically outlines that I can do home births, right? And what that looks like. The problem goes back to the physician's malpractice insurance, where the malpractice insurance typically says that you can do home births, okay? So it's not illegal, right? And then the licensed midwives who are the only ones licensed independently, I add, do not and cannot. It specifically says in the law that they cannot have a collaborating physician or something. Like they will not. So they are licensed independently to do home births, whereas nurse midwives are not licensed independently to do anything. So big problem here, but whatever. I saw in my journey to being a licensed midwife, the attitude towards home birthers and licensed midwives. A lot of the terminology is lay midwife. And I'm like, nope, they have a license. Lay is different than trained and, certified and whatever, right? There's a lot of terminology around being illegal, like, well, you're doing something illegal, whatever. Like, it was a lot of just snoot, for a lack of a better word, just snoot about it all. I also saw on the other side, like, if we needed to call 911 for some assistance, there's not a lot of training about responding to a home birth. So that, is something that I set my mind out to do as well, is like, let's go to these fire departments, let's go to these ambulance companies, and let's do the training, right? So I got certified to teach neonatal resuscitation, and I go around everywhere, and I'm like, let's practice a postpartum hemorrhage. Let's practice resuscitating a baby. Let's practice what you do when you walk in on my emergency that I have called you to help with. Sometimes I really need help. Sometimes it's a checkbox. Like, I need to call because this is what we did, but I'm going to send you away, But also sometimes I'm calling because I need your help. So you need to know what to do. So I saw a lot of that, like, don't know what to do, right?
I think it's super important when people are trying to find a home birth midwife, really any kind of care provider, but specifically a home birth midwife. It's about skill level and confidence level. That my experience in birth work has absolutely honed into, because I'll have clients call me and say, well, they want to do this and it doesn't really make sense. I said, they are telling you their experience and they're telling you what they're most comfortable with. That's why they're telling you. It doesn't mean that your body can't do this. It's, experience on the other side. And that's what I was seeing too, was, Kim's all over here saying, yeah, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. But when I started attending births with you and things were not just rainbows and unicorns, everything was fine. Now, in the crisis portions, everything seemingly on the outside of somebody that did not know what was going on, it looked very traumatic, but when you have somebody that has the experience and is trained and is confident in themselves to know, I got this and I know the steps to take. And that is like such the difference, because I have just had so many people that are like, man, I thought hiring a midwife was going to be just so much different. And I felt so out of control coming out of that birth because they did not do what I thought that they were going to do. And why would anybody be practicing if they didn't know what they were doing?
Sure.
Right.
And sometimes we don't know what we don't know as well.
So asking specific questions like, what do you consider an emergency? How are you going to handle it? What does transfer look like? What does transfer look like to you? And then get all that information and then be really comfortable with it. There was one client that we had together that the primary midwife that was taking care of her was not comfortable with some things that were going on with her. And you're like, I'll do it. I'll step in. I'll do it. And because the informed consent conversation with that was, hey, this is what we're seeing. You know, I am willing to still do this with you if you are willing to understand the risks that you are under. And the other midwife was still around, but she was not going to be primary in that one. And she kind of stepped aside. She was there, but she kind of stepped aside because you were like, I'll do it. We got this. And it's all about the family being able to have all the information and saying, I got it. I'm absorbing the risk. This is what I still want to do. And that's what I'm not used to in this community is, and when I saw you do that and when I was around you doing that, I'm like, this is just a breath of fresh air, but it hasn't always been easy for you. So tell me some of the other obstacles that came along, because you didn't just swoop in and get your certified practicing midwife's license. And I was so thankful to be able to be there when you actually got your like little thing and pictures and stuff, because I know how hard of a road it was. So in Alabama, I feel like the hospitals, when somebody has transferred in, even a community midwife, I think that's kind of what the language is right now, home birth midwife, whatever were the language is, going into the hospital on a transfer is not always accepted well. And not even just in Alabama, these are other places too. But when you have a provider that's coming in that knows exactly what they're doing and what needs to happen next, but isn't necessarily able to do that in the system, there's some pushback on that.
Oh, a lot. Okay. Yes. So, and let me say this is I got direct contact access to the OB hospitalists at a local hospital. And so before I talk about the pushback, once I was able to communicate to a physician, like do a provider to provider handoff, I felt it was a whole different story, a whole different ball game. Okay. Because these doctors they were there working to bring in the people in the community. Like they were not private practice. They didn't have any like reason to like not take these people, right? And honestly, the law said they had to, so they just took it, and they were so kind and so generous and very understanding, and I think that also like they knew I was smart and that I wasn't going to bring, like stupid stuff to them. And so, or like drop off a crapshoot at the door and leave and not say anything, not bring any records or whatever. So I will say that like once that was able to happen, my life was much better. Okay. But before that, so when I had to just call the charge nurse and be like, hey, I'm a midwife in the community. I've got a patient. I'm bringing her in. And they would just be so mean. They'd be like, ugh. I'd be like, do you want a report? I guess. Like, what do you want to tell me or whatever? And then be surprised when I would ask for the physician, like, can I speak to the on-call physician so I can tell them? And they'd be like, why? I'm like, what do you mean why? I don't know why you would think I would want to talk to them, So anyway, or I would bring them in and the nurses would just completely pretend like either I wasn't there or that I didn't like matter at all. And okay, here's the thing. It's about my patient. I don't matter, but I've been managing this. I am the primary midwife. I don't care if I don't have privileges here. I'm allowed to tell you what's happening, right? And
you should tell them what's happening.
Exactly. And like, you should believe me. Like, I'm not stupid. And that is how they treated me, was like an idiot. Like I was an idiot. And also would like roll their eyes at me when I was speaking, or would get upset with my patient because my patient when you bring them to triage, like they have to go in by themselves, and then they can have one person come back. And my patient would always ask for me. They would not ask for their husband. They would ask for me. Okay. Because they knew that their husband was going to sit there and, be a husband. Right. But their midwife was going to be their midwife and stand up for them. Right. And so like, I didn't necessarily care about what their idea was about me. They were going to get what they got. Right. And so, and I would get from the nurses a lot like, well, you don't have privileges here. And I would come back and be like, you realize that you are part of the problem, right? Like it is ACOG says this, and this. You are not practicing evidence-based medicine. You're just practicing because this is what we always do. Like that is not okay.
They were treating those people like they were just coming into the hospital in the section of labor that they were in, and they didn't care what the management was before then. That is the perfect example of the breakdown of why Alabama is the way that it is. The mortality rate, the maternal mortality rates, and the infant mortality rates. There you go.
Right. But once I was able, like I said, to just automatically call the doctor, get the nurses out of the picture, it was so much better, so much smoother, because the doctor is ultimately who was going to be making the decisions, right? And so I didn't need the drama. I didn't need the fluff. I don't need that. And, it did get better after that. So, and my patients were treated better after that, honestly. So, and that's what I cared about the most. Like, you can be mean to me all day long. I do not care. That's fine. Don't you be mean to her. Don't you treat her like she didn't have a brain cell to make a decision, right? Like that's the only person who's been making decisions in this room. It's her. And so she needs that.
Right. Because nobody should have a home birth. Everybody's making an unsafe choice. And you had to be transferred to the hospital, told you. What are some heavy situations that you've had to handle here in Alabama versus, have you been uncomfortable doing home births here, trying to like figure out how things go? Well, tell me about that.
I mean, first of all, doing home births here in Alabama is uncomfortable for me, period, because it is so taboo. And I never know what's going to go next, and there are people in this community who want me to stop and want to see me fail and to go away. I don't know why they think that I will just go away if whatever, but like just because of personal reasons or something. But like, I have been reported to the board of midwifery and the board of nursing because these people want me to stop doing home births. Right. And had to go through that. And they got dismissed, by the way, because they were stupid. Right. But
that took like a year and a half of your life, though. It blows my mind how I'm watching in real time. It's happened to me. Like, I know that there are people in this community that, will tell people, well, she's not taking clients anymore, just so that they won't see me as much anymore. And so in real time with you, I'm like, you cannot lie. You cannot lie and get away with it. You just can't. But there are people that you were blazing such a trail of change here, for positive change here for the community on many different levels, because it's not only just home birth in this community with a community midwife that is local, and so more people are having it, but it's, now you are also taking hospital births.
Yes.
And you are attending hospital births now, and you are able to and this is the hospital across town, by the way, guys, that did not want to hire her in the first, the other hospital or the other practice that practices at the other hospital didn't want to hire her when she first got here. She went across town to the competition, got a collaborating physician, which is wonderful. And then she also blazed the trail for that hospital to allow or accept water labor for her patients.
And working on water birth.
Y'all, I have been here since high school. Okay. I graduated high school here, and I've been doing birth work for 26 years here. We have been trying to do this. And of course, we're just out of hospital doulas and childbirth educators, and they're not going to listen to us. It's like, yeah, Tracy, we got it. We got you. And I would get to a person and then they'd leave. I'd get to a champion and then they would leave. And the hospital that you are working with now really throughout the years was really primed for really acceptance when you came here. And I'm so super thankful for it. And I'm seeing it. And I'm seeing the people are losing their minds, not only losing it and trying to take her. It's like, oh, she's doing some really good things. We got to get her out of here.
Yeah. And telling
her out of here.
Their patients not to come to me because I'm an abortion provider. That is literally coming out of people's mouths to patients who want to transfer to me, saying, oh, you shouldn't go to her. She's an abortion provider. Like, first of all, have I been an abortion provider? Okay. Second of all, it's illegal. I cannot do that here. So even if I wanted to, I can't. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're doing some really great stuff when people are actively trying to get your butt out of this community. It's same with the doula agreement, right? When I had a client that didn't want to sign it, and then I didn't sign it because they didn't sign it, and risk management came in the room and said, well, you're not allowed to be in here anymore. And I've done births since then. You can't get rid of us.
No, absolutely not. And let me tell you, this hospital that I got privileges at is a hidden gem. Like, most people don't come here to that hospital to have their baby. And honestly, there's a lot of like stuff going around about that hospital that, I don't know, whatever. All I have to say is I have never once heard a nurse say to me, well, we don't do that here. They'll say, oh, that's weird, Kim. That's weird. I've never seen that done before. They're getting used to me. Now, okay, are they used to just the regular old physician model of care?
Right.
That is nothing wrong with that.
Right.
I am just not that. Right. I am very different.
And your clients are not going to be that.
And my clients are different. They expect the same treatment from them that they get from me.
Right.
Whereas I speak to my clients as though we are not managing your pregnancy. There is nothing to manage.
Right.
It is a pregnancy.
Right.
You have, like, hey, here's the labs we need to do. You go with that? Okay, this is why I do them. Okay. Hey, I need to do an ultrasound to look at your baby's head to toe, right? Make sure we have a brain, 2 kidneys, all the things. You go with that? Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I need to, hey, let's talk about this gestational diabetes screening. Like, what is it? What is it? What is it for? Have a whole 2-page consent form. What it is, what's it for? What are the types of testing that we do? What happens if you don't test? Who can truly low riskly say that they won't have it and truly decline testing, right? And then, okay, what are we going to do? Which tests are we going to do? And if we're not going to do anything, why? Right. And then 36 weeks. Hey, there's this thing that we need to test for. It's called Group B strep. Here's what it is. Here's what we do about it. And I like to have that information. Let's just test to see what the information is. And then if it's positive, let's talk about what we do about it and why we would want, to treat with antibiotics, or when you would choose not to, and blah, 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 right? Here's all of your, here's a consent form that says all of these things. Let me know if you decide to do it or not. Right. And that is the way that I speak to people. Oh, vitamin K. Hey, you know what? There's this thing that we do is the vitamin K injection. You've got a couple options. There's an injection, there's an oral. Technically, this FDA hasn't approved the oral, so that's really not an option that the hospital can recommend. But the IM one is this and that, and also you can do nothing. Here's all of the information, the 26-page document. Thank you, Rebecca Decker, for that. And let me know what you'd like to do. Right. Erythromycin ointment, blah, 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 blah. And so then they come to the hospital and they just expect the nurses to say the same thing. Hey, are you going to do the vitamin K? Are you going to do this, this, and that? Right. Which they're getting used to. They are getting used to that. The saying, are you, instead of why aren't you doing that?
Right.
Or what?
Right. Well, and a stark difference in the hospital that you're talking about that is realizing that, and very quickly, I might add, here's Kim, here are her people that are going to come to her. I have to look at them in a very different way, perspective wise. And I really in real time am seeing, and those nurses over there, I've loved them throughout the years too. I mean, they've always been, but is that where everybody goes? No. And it should be, because they are changing how things are looking for birth.
Yes.
Stark difference here. We were at a birth, me and you, and your patient, my client, decided to transfer in because I think her blood pressure was creeping up. She knew she was going to have a big baby. She was over a little bit. And, you know, y'all had tried some things, weren't working. And she's like, you know, and you're like, hey, I'm not, but here are your options. And she's like, yeah, hey, I think I need to be inside the system. We walk in. It was that hospital across town that doesn't like people. And they do very, their own standards of practice, and they shove a doula agreement to everyone that has a doula. Not only did I have to sign it and my client have to sign it, they wanted you to sign it. That literally blew my mind. I was like, your facility, these administrative people, these people that are around are telling these families that are having babies exactly where your mind is. Exactly. Yep. Exactly. Now, I have several clients that don't sign it. It's just an arbitrary, hey, this is what we think doulas do, what doulas don't do, but I don't work for them. Right. So, but they shoved it to you too. And I'm like, she's their provider. Like, this blew my mind. But then we had a birth at the other hospital. I walk in, they knew you were the provider, and that nurse did come in. I think you had gotten there, and she was like, just tell me what you need me to do, you know? And then our patient got an epidural, and she comes over to me, or I heard them. This was probably one of the very first births that you had done there. Yes. And she comes to me, and they're kind of talking a little bit about you over at the computer. And I heard them, and the anesthesiologist said, how old is she anyway? I guess because he's like, she looks 12. And I'm like, I was like, I love Kim, and I think she's great, and she's a great provider. And so the nurse comes over to me, and she's like, she's going to hate me. I had to get on to lab because they were not getting her stuff done. I had to know her platelet count before her epidural was given. And I'm like, Kim is not the one that you have to worry about. And I'm like, Kim wants you to fight for your patients. And it's so funny how she was like, oh no, I'm just now meeting this provider. And I'm like, look, it's fine. Do your job. You do your job well. You're doing great. It's going to be fine. But it was just a very big difference on, we are working with this new provider. We are acknowledging that these are her patients, and we're just going to all work together as a team, where the other hospital across town is more like, nope,
don't care.
No, we don't care. We don't like it. And you've had some run-ins over there, and I've been really proud of you for how, you've handled that, because you've definitely kept your power in the process with not being accepted, not being liked, and then being lied about. And like, those are some things that make people run and burn out and are like, I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it.
It just honestly gives me more drive, like, here I am, you're advertising for me, honestly, go ahead, and then people transfer over scared to death of me and my practice and whatever. And then they're like, what is this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're so happy. And they like that they mean something, right? And here's the thing is, I really truly believe that there is heart in all of the OB providers in our community. I believe that they want what's best for their patients. And how they communicate that is not always, I don't know how I would communicate that, but they have to take so many patients. And the system is broken, right? Like, the payers don't pay, and the people can't pay. And like, and so because there is no money in obstetrics. There really is not. They have to take hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of patients. And so you get 10-minute appointments and you get the, take your blood pressure, listen to your baby, to measure your belly. Any questions? No, thanks. Bye. Right. Whereas I am trying, and I truly believe in the midwifery model of care, in that you get you are booked for 30 minutes with me, an hour if you are planning a home birth. Now, if it's not your first home birth, you get 30 minutes. Like, what do you need an hour for? Unless we need an hour for, that's fine. Okay. Whatever. But the thing is that all of my patients, especially for planning a hospital birth, you get 30 minutes, full minutes with me. And I am it. I am all of it, right? So you're going to come in, you're going to sit down. I'm going to come get you. I'm going to take your blood pressure. I'm going to take your, do your weight. I'm going to sit down. I got a couch for you to sit on. And people are like, this is weird. Like, there's a couch, there's no plastic chairs, there's like music and, whatever. And because I'm poor and I can't afford a nurse all the time or office manager or whatever, right? Like, because
you're an independent, you work for yourself. You are an independent practice.
Independent practice, exactly.
You're not under anybody else.
Yes, and you get me, right? And you sit, and I have a list of things that we have to talk about. And so I'll go through my list of all of the things you should be knowing at this part of your pregnancy and the things we need to counsel you about to make decisions about next time, right? And then what are your questions? What do you have to say, right? And most of the time I've answered everything already and, whatever. And I really encourage childbirth. I require childbirth education for first-time unmedicated birthers and first-time moms for home births. And then I really highly encourage, from the first day you meet me, are you going to hire a doula? What is your plan for childbirth education? What's your postpartum plan? Like, what's your time off? Like, we're planning your, situation, because that I believe in that part of the system, right? So the true midwifery model of care is how I'm going to practice. And so people come to me from these other practices and they're a little weirded out at first, but then they're like, this is awesome. I've never been treated like this before. And I'm like, I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry that you have not been treated this way before, because this is the standard.
Right. So what doesn't bother you in your, the controversial stuff that we talk about is like big baby. And so say like somebody gets to the end of your of the end of their, pregnancy. And, so how do you feel about bigger babies? Well, first of all, what is the biggest baby that you have delivered in your practice? Not transfer.
In Alabama, I believe 10 pounds, 14 ounces. Okay. I'm pretty sure is the biggest baby at home.
Okay.
11.3 was one that we transferred because of her blood pressure. So here's the thing is we got to look at our risk factors. Right. So if you do not have gestational diabetes, if you do not have any reason to grow an exponentially larger baby than you would have been able to deliver because you're taking good care of yourself, you did your screening and all the things, right? I don't care if your baby's big. I do not believe that your body would grow a human that cannot come out of your body. Now, if it's your first baby and you have a giant child in there and we didn't miss anything, okay, there's a little bit more of me in the back of my head saying, is this baby going to come out? Because we don't know. You know what I mean? But I'm not going to tell you at 39 weeks that your baby's too big to come out and we need to have a C-section, right? Like, why would I do that? Now, am I going to say, hey, your growth ultrasound said that your baby was in the 100th percentile, right? And it's a ginormous child. Let's talk about the risks that are associated with big babies, okay? So first things first, shoulder dystocia, okay? Or really long labor, right? So a long labor, those fat babies sometimes can't tuck their chin. They got to get through all the things. So I'm going to need you being doing your pelvic floor exercises, doing your spinning baby stuff, get your pelvic floor ready to do the work.
Your body prep.
Yes, exactly. Second, Okay, shoulder dystocia. What does that mean? The baby's head comes out, the shoulders don't come, either get stuck under the pubic bone or like around, wherever. There's all kinds of different shoulder dystocias. Okay, so what does that mean for that, right? So there are ways to resolve that. Here's how I would do that. But also it has an increased risk of these things. Okay, injury to the baby, HIE, like, NICU time, like blah, 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 right? All right. So then we talk about what's next is postpartum hemorrhage. Right? So if you got a big baby and maybe it gets stuck, maybe we have maybe we have a postpartum hemorrhage. Here's the things, right? Are you comfortable with that? Because I am happy to refer you to my doctor for a C-section if you would like, if that scares you enough that you would like to make that decision. But I am not going to try to scare you into making that decision. I'm going to say, here's the things that happen. Here's how we handle it. Here's the risks. Here's the benefits, tearing, blah, blah, blah. And if that makes people completely uncomfortable and say, ooh, I think I'd rather have a C-section, happily, please do that under your own decision. Okay.
Yeah. And when I have your clients that take my childbirth education, we do the labor rehearsal together. And most of that is, hey, what are you concerned about? Do you want to talk about what would happen if there was a shoulder dystocia? Okay, Kim, let's get into your head. Let's talk about what is in your head if they're in the pool or if they're on land, or what commands are you going to give these people if that were to happen? Because without that, I think people are just kind of floating in the wind. Sometimes they're like, oh, well, I don't want a stuck baby. Okay, I'm going to go plan for a cesarean. I mean, even with hospital births, we're not even just talking about home births.
Right.
Yeah. What does scare you? What is a situation that's like, that's going to get my heart rate up?
AFE.
Okay. And tell us what that is.
An amniotic fluid embolism, which is a whole thing, y'all. It's a whole thing. It is very rare. Like, I don't necessarily have like fear. Sometimes I have anxiety about if something were to happen, you know what I mean?
Well, and that's why I really like, so when somebody's looking for a midwife, these are the things that I think people need to watch, watch the responses of your midwives, because, I have the benefit of seeing Kim master a hemorrhage. Paramedics were coming in, couldn't start an IV, and Kim's like, move out of the way, I got it. And a surprise breech and a resuscitation of a surprise breech that needed help, other things that have happened, and you don't want to have to do those things. But when you're questioning your midwife, what is emergencies that you're not okay with, or what would you consider an emergency, or what are you afraid of? I mean, your answers are, I'm not really afraid. I don't really want to do them, but I know my stuff.
Yes. And that's the thing is, I'm not going to so we're going to transfer to the hospital if I know I'm going to have to resuscitate your baby.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to say,
right.
I don't want to do this.
Right.
Like, in my patients, the people that I attract respect that.
Yes.
And they want me to say that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And they trust that if something happened and I could.
Right.
But if I'm saying this is probably going to happen, I ain't trying to do this at home.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And you can't just assume that a home birth midwife knows all these things.
Exactly.
You can't. And you are hiring the person that is going to be on your side, that knows what's going to, what you need. And what's really sad about Alabama too is, and I think some things are changing, is a lot of people just gravitate to hospital births because of insurance, money out of pocket. And that's why I'm so, so thankful that you are able to do both. And I know you have people that, that work with you, that are trying to help you stay sane too. We work a lot together also. Yeah. And I'm just super thankful for you.
Well, I am definitely working with my people for sure. I have a lot of, honestly, over the last couple of years, or this year especially, but the last couple of years, I mean, it really has been like, I wanted to quit. How many times did I call you and say, I'm done. I ain't doing this. and you're like, go to sleep, eat something, go to sleep. Because there have been times where I have had to do things and I've been like, done.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
This
not the community for this.
This is on the coaching side of our relationship. And whatever midwife or birth worker that's watching this, you cannot sacrifice yourself for your community. You just can't. And yeah, there were times where you call me and you're just like, I just can't. And I'm like, you know what? Block off some space. And just recently, when I saw your post that said, I'm out for the weekend, and if you have anything, call Dr. Clark, because you're like, I had just had it. And I wish that more midwives would do that. Because I think we're pushing midwives, all kind of midwives, to where, you know, they're all overworked. Everybody's burning out. Everybody thinks that they are the answer to maternity care, which I cannot stand that, that mindset. But I know you are, and the continuing education and the precepting that you do and the teaching that you do. I see her personally also, and your ability to teach while things are going on, and give the bigger picture. And it's just very comforting. It's very comforting. I'm glad to know you. I'm glad you're here in my community. I'm not letting you go anywhere. So strap in.
I'm not going anywhere that I know of. I do want to say this too. It is the doctor that helped me get hospital privileges is the literal like angel of this whole situation. Yeah. This woman took me on. I like harassed her at a community mommy baby shower thing. And I was like, hey, can I take you out to lunch or dinner or something? And this girl's busy. Like, she's so busy, and she has no time for me. Yeah. And so she's like, yeah, okay. She's like, I want a midwife. And I was like, oh, no, I don't want to work for you. No offense, but I don't want to work for a system. Right. I don't want to work for somebody who can say, you can't do that because I'll fire you. Right. I wanted to walk in and say, fire me. What are you going to do? You know what I mean? Anyway, and she's like, oh, that's weird. Okay, we can talk about this, right? So she comes, she lets me take her out. We talk about my experience. I give her my resume. We talk about, I was currently in my doctorate program at the time. So I went back for a doctorate degree. My original nurse midwifery degree is a master's degree. So I went back for a doctor of nursing practice degree, and for research and for many things, because I do want to teach and all of the things, right? So during that time, it was one of my last semesters, and I said, hey, I've got to have like 100 hours of clinical time. Like, can I just do some precepting with you? And it can be like a working interview. Like, I'll help you with clinic. We can go to births together, like whatever. And you can see how I practice. I can see how you practice. We can see if we match. And when we did that, I spent, those 100 hours with her. We are like two peas in a pod. Like, we think very similarly. She appreciates autonomy. She gets a little weirded out by as much autonomy that I give people. Yeah. Yeah. It's just a different way of thinking, that's okay. And I will say, like, I'll tell her, like, well, this is how it would be, and I'll tell her why I'm doing this. And she'll say, well, the guidelines say this or whatever. And I'll say, well, those changed in like 2019 or something, right. So, we'll talk about it, and I'll be like, you know what? It's fine. I'll do whatever you want. It's okay. Like, you say your piece. I'll do that. That's okay. 'Cause you're in charge of me technically. But she is so generous and to me, and she gives her heart and soul to my patients, and she is wonderful. And I feel like I'm back in Washington with my friends, where I can call her. She answers my phone calls every time I call her. I try not to call her because she answers like every time. And I'm like, I'm trying to bother her. But she always answers my text messages. She always answers my calls. And sometimes I'm like, I need an adult. Mom, help me, and she's helps me immediately, me, and is always available to me. And so I do want that in my conversation with you, is that, like, I found my person, Like, she is amazing. And I feel so empowered because I have her on my side, on my team. Like, she is there to say, like, yeah, it's fine, Kim. Like, you know, do your weird stuff. It's okay. Just don't make me do it, but it's fine.
But it's not weird.
Yeah, it's weird to them, though.
Yeah,
you know?
I know. I do.
So,
it's okay.
Part of our
yeah, it's okay. It's just different perspective. And as long as we all know that we're, you know, on the same team for our patients, clients, or whatever, that's what it's about. And even if you're not comfortable with it or you don't know a lot about it, that's what makes strong teams. And that's what I have seen. And that's why I'm just like, when I have clients that are like, hey, you know, who should I go to? And I'm like, look, I'm not biased, but here are your people. Here are your people. Yeah. Because I know how they're going to be treated and I know what their outcomes are going to be. Mm-hmm. So, but thank you for sitting down with me today. I always enjoy talking to you, and we always just have these, you know, these kind of conversations about change. What is the next thing that's on your roster to change? Like, what are you in the process of doing now?
Oh, water birth, 100%.
Okay. Yeah, like that they can just stay in there and they don't have to get out.
Yeah, exactly. That would be next.
I cannot wait to be a fly on the wall.
I know, right? I just got Medicaid to finally approve me as a provider. It was a little confusing for them because I was not physician employed.
Right.
So it took about 7 months. Well, it took a lot longer than that to like get in with it, but it took 7 months to fix it. And so I am officially on the roster with the Alabama Coordinated Health Network to be able to take pregnant patients and, you know, do the things. So, but my right here, right now goal is getting those babies out inside of the water.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So people don't have to get out when they're pushing. That's hard. It's like, oh, baby's coming. Oh, yep. Got to get out.
That's just a lot of training for the nurses. That's why we started with water labor, because I wanted to make sure that, you know, everybody got comfortable with it and like, you know, how to do true intermittent auscultation, how to assess, you know, the water temperature and all of those kinds of things, like the safety issues that come with being at the hospital in the water, right? And then all we'll do is add the birth. Like that's all we have to do once everybody's trained up. So it isn't unreachable idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for spending time with me today. I sure am glad you're here. I'm glad that I know you.
Glad I know you.
Thank you. Well, and we will talk another time.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for spending time with me today. If you follow me on TikTok at Tracidoula4 or Instagram at Tracidoula, you know how I like to dig into the deep conversations. If you don't follow me on those places, you should, as well as this podcast. As we lean into honest conversations, especially the hard ones, remember that your journey has power and your healing lights the way for others. The work you're doing ripples further than you know. If you'd like to work with me, whether it's coaching or childbirth classes or workshops if you're a professional, or mentoring, or maybe even speaking at an event, visit Tracidoula.com. And if today's conversation spoke to you, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Reach out anytime through email at hello@Tracidoula.com and feel free to leave a comment. Until next time, move forward with intention and keep your power in the process.